This Torah class is brought to you by TorahAnytime.com.
6 volumes, 20 years. That was the headline of an article that I read last October. 6 volumes, 20 years. This was an article about a most unique siyum celebrated Le'iloi Nishmas Chacham Harav Hagoin Rabbi Yosef Zecher Tzaddik Livracha. This siyum was most unusual. It was not a siyum on a Masechta of Gemara. It was not a siyum on a Seder of Mishnayos. It was a siyum on the 6 volumes of halachic responsa of Rabbi Yosef, the Shas Tshuvas Yichavadas. This siyum was not made by a rabbi. It was not made by a rav. It was not made by a famous tzaddik. It was a siyum made by a car salesman. A 55-year-old Jewish car salesman working for Nissan. Lives in Far Rockaway. Maybe some of you know him. This man's name was Avi Goldstein. This car salesman, who completed learning the 6 volumes of Shas Tshuvas Yichavadas, actually completed it 3 times over the course of 20 years. Now, what is most unusual about the siyum is when this man, Mr. Avi Goldstein, learnt these 6 volumes. One may think he learnt it every evening for an hour and a half or 2 hours, or maybe he had a Seder every Shabbos to learn from it for 3 hours of Shabbos. Listen to this. And I quote to you the interview that the newspaper had with Avi on October 25th, 2013. He says, it started about 20 years ago. I felt the time being Gavra Legavra, between the Aliyos and when the Torah was being read, I felt that time was going to waste. Avi explained to the Yated Ne'aman. One should not talk at that time, of course, according to the halacha. And where I daven, honestly, the Misha Berachs, the prayers said in that interval, were not really that long. But nevertheless, there was a 1 minute, 60-second interval bein Gavra Legavra. I felt that I could better utilize those 60 seconds. Avi admits that he may not have learned Yichavadas between every single bein Gavra Legavra. Occasionally he learned other things. And periodically he would continue to learn the Sefer shortly after davening, sometimes at other times. But primarily, for the most point, his Seder and Yichavadas was structured around 7 60-second intervals every Shabbos. The fact that Avi completed his study of all 6 volumes at precisely the same time that Rabbi Yosef passed away, Avi says it was min hashamayim. I didn't plan it this way, it just worked out. My Seder was to learn each volume thoroughly and then review it. Each volume took me 3 years, 2 years to learn it, 1 year to review. Look at what this man accomplished. Over the course of 20 years, his learning, for the most part, did not consist more than 60 seconds at a time. Not for 1 minute, more than 1 minute at a time. 7 times, every Shabbos, he learned for 60 seconds. And he completed Sfarim 3 times that probably many Talmidei Chachamim never completed in their entire lives. Look at the value of 1 minute. Look at the value of 60 seconds. Look what a person could accomplish in the shortest amount of time. My grandfather, my mother's father, was a working man his whole life. He had a Seder every Sunday morning. He learned Mishnah Berurah for 1 hour once a week, among many other Siddur. But he had a Seder Mishnah Berurah 1 hour once a week. In 20 years, he completed all 6 volumes of Mishnah Berurah twice, and he's on his 3rd cycle. 1 hour once a week. When one embarks upon their voyage of learning, and you look at the shelves, and you see how big the books are, how many volumes in Shas, how difficult the language is, and you think to yourself, even if I learn, it will just be a drop in the bucket. What am I accomplishing? Our sages teach us this is not the correct approach. This is not the proper attitude, says the Medrash in Parshas Mitzayra. Mi shetipish oimer, the fool says, Mi yachal lomay kelim lamed prakim. You think I could learn Masechta Kelim 30 prakim? It's impossible. I'll never be able to learn it. Never finish it. Nezikin lamed prakim. Baba Kama, Baba Metzia, Baba Basra, 10 prakim, 10 prakim, 10 prakim. 30 prakim, it's too big. Why bother? Why start? Says the Medrash, what does the wise man say? The wise man says, I don't have to learn the whole Sefer, the whole Masechta in one night. Today I'll learn 2 halachos. Tomorrow I'll learn 2 halachos. The next day I'll learn 2 halachos. And eventually, if I'm consistent, I will learn Kol HaTorah Kula. Says the Medrash, Mi Shepikeach Mahu Oimer. What does the wise man say? Harini Shoyneh Shnei Halachos Hayom Shnei Halachos Lamachar Ad Shani Oimer V'loimed Kol HaTorah Kula. Shlomo HaMelech says in Mishlei that the Torah is like a fig. You know what he compares the Torah to? Shlomo compares the Torah to a fig tree. Why a fig tree? Of all fruits? Says a Medrash. Shlomo HaMelech says, Noitzer te'ena yochal perya. He who guards the fig tree will eat its fruits. You know what the comparison, says a Medrash in Parashas Nasai, to the fig tree is? Every other fruit. When the tree is ripe, basically all the fruits on the tree are ripe at the same time. But the fig tree is different. The fig tree, 2 fruits are ripe today, 2 fruits are ripe tomorrow, 2 fruits are ripe the next day. That's the same way with Torah. You can't learn the whole thing at one time. 2 halachas today, 2 halachas tomorrow, 2 halachas the next day, and before you know it, you look behind you, time passes, time flies, and you've accomplished a tremendous amount. A few weeks ago, Motzai Shabbos, I came home to make Havdalah, and I look at the Havdalah candle, it was on its last leg. There was almost nothing left. I asked my wife, didn't we just get a new candle? She said, yeah, 9 months ago we got a new candle. That's what happens to Havdalah candles. I couldn't believe it. How long does the Havdalah candle burn every Motzai Shabbos? 3 minutes, 4 minutes. Could you see any discernible difference before you make Havdalah to after you make Havdalah? Yeah, you don't see any difference. But over the course of weeks and over the course of months, that Havdalah candle burns down, 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 down until you have to get a new one. And if this is how it is in the physical world, then certainly in the spiritual world, small efforts, small actions have a cumulative effect. Every year we start off the beginning of the year, we say, this year we're going to be perfect tzaddikim. Our davening, we're going to be mechavin for every word. We're going to learn every day for 5 hours. We're not going to say one insulting word to our friends. We're going to be perfect tzaddikim this year. And then we come to the end of the year and we look back, just another year. Same old, just another year. Satmar Rebbe once said, that's the meaning of the pasuk, Mereishis Hashanah, Arachris Shana. Every year at the beginning of the year you say, Hashanah, this is going to be the year. This year we're going to be perfect. This year we're going to be tzaddikim. And it comes to the end of the year, and it's Arachris Shana. It's just the same old year. Just another year. Nothing special. No change. Are we any different now than we were a year ago? What can we do to ensure that when we come to next year, Tavshin Ayin Vav, and we look back, we're going to say, you know what? This year was different. This year I'm better. This year I'm changed. There's only one Eitzah. There's only one piece of advice, and that is to take 1 or 2 small things and accept upon oneself. This year, I'm going to improve and I'm going to correct 1 or 2 small mitzvahs. Whether it's Ben Adam LaMakayim, whether it's Talmud Torah, whether it's Tefillah, whether it's Ben Adam LaChaveroi. It was the practice of Gedolei Yisrael to make a Kabbalah, to make a resolution, to commit it to writing, to write it down, to be able to periodically look back and see if you're keeping the Kabbalah, but to take a small thing and accept upon oneself to change one small thing. You won't be the Gadol Hador in Tafshin Ayin Vav. But small Kabbalahs and small Maisim, they add up. And when the years pass, and as the decades pass, you will be transformed into a completely different person. All the Ribbon Shalom asks us is to take one small step. Says Ribbon Shalom, I'll take care of the rest. Now, when the elevator was invented, Chafetz Chaim was very excited about the elevator. They asked him, why are you so excited? You're going to take a ride in the elevator? What's the thrill of the elevator? Said the Chafetz Chaim, the elevator is a perfect analogy to Ruchnius, to spirituality. All you have to do is take one step, and the Ribbon Shalom carries you all the way up. All the Ribbon Shalom asks us, he says, my dear child, just open up a little bit. Pischuli Pesach kechudosh shamachat. Open up a little bit, like the hole of the needle. The needle hole is so small, so minuscule. Says God, just change a little bit. V'ani eftach lachem Pesach kepischai shalulam, and I'll open up the world to you. You just take one step, and I'll take you the rest of the way. And I believe that this is one of the messages of the shofar. You look at the shofar and you see the small hole on the bottom end. That small hole represents that on our end, on our part, all we have to do is open up just a little bit. Just make a small improvement, a small change. Take upon yourself to be a little bit more careful in Shabbos, a little bit more careful in Lashon Hara, but in a serious way, in a concrete way. On our end, all we have to do is open up a little bit, and then you look at the top of the shofar, and the top of the shofar is open wide. Because when the Rebbe Shalom sees that when we open up a little bit, Rebbe Shalom says, I will open up the world to you. So let us try this Rosh Hashanah to accept upon ourselves one small resolution. We'll write it down after Yom Tif, or before Yom Tif, even better. And if we stick to it every day, and we stick to it every week, it's going to add up to be something that we're going to look back on, and we'll be very proud of, and the Ribbon Shalom will be very proud of. Aksiva Chasima Taiva.
You've just experienced another Torah class brought to you by TorahAnytime.com.